agony of defeat.
Madison, great ball around the corner, Petticini, he beats them all! Junior Polar out wide, bumped away from Trindle, Sharks coming through, none of them can hold him!
Good morning and welcome to another episode of the Tip Sheet Podcast, this one not live, being pre-recorded by myself, also known as John, or 4020, and my good mate 60s, also known as Craig, as we preview another action-packed block of games across the NRL, NRLW, New South Wales Cup, Harvey Norman Women's Premiership, and the Jersey Flegg Cup. Whew. Big docket of games, Craig. 5 there for us to preview. Before we do start talking shop and start talking footy, as always, checking in. How you doing, mate? What's going on this week?
Well, it's been a massive footy week, John, which has been that's always a great distraction for me with some stuff going on at the moment, and it will continue to be so with the footy stretched out across the weekend and our appearance in Paraleagues on Sunday, leading into what was originally going to be a triple header of matches at Combank Stadium.
Triple header, yeah.
Yeah, it was going to be New South Wales Cup into NRL into NRLW. The New South Wales Cup, for people that aren't aware, has been moved to, I think it's midday on Sunday up at Kellyville. And it's now a double header at Combank with the NRL and NRLW. We'll be in Paraleagues around 4 o'clock in Sturlos as usual. We may well have a special guest this week. As soon as we know, we'll let people know. There's a little bit of a clue. Of course, it is Indigenous Round. So that might be a bit of a clue if we end up with one of the guests this week. All depends a little bit on timing and availability, those sorts of things. But John, as I said, busy week this week. And of course, part of that has been all of the fallout from what transpired with Bailey Simonsson and the reports on NRL Tonight on Fox that Bailey had requested a release from the Eels. All I will say at the moment is that there can't be any immediate release of Bailey Simonsson because of the fact that not only does he have a 2-year deal, but all the transfer windows are gone. They're gone with the NRL at the end of June, and they're gone with the Super League, which I think was the 1st of August, and which saw us part ways on loan from a loan basis with Ryan Madison and Brendan Hands. It wouldn't even be possible for Bailey to go on a loan situation to the Super League at this stage. It's just the deadlines have passed. So what I would say, because we're getting a lot of people still sending us messages, is that I'd expect that there would be a period where people will take a bit of a step back and just assess where things are at. I'm talking about the club and Bailey, what have you, because it feels like a situation where if it's going to be worked out, it's not going to be worked out overnight. And I think it may take a week or two to sort out where things are going. Who knows, it might take a little bit longer, but I think it is a time of sitting back and assessing where things are at, and then whether Bailey decides that he wants to push ahead with that, whether the club feels that if he genuinely wants to part ways, whether they would stand in his way. I don't think they would if he genuinely wanted to part ways. We know where Jason Ryles is headed this season in terms of what he's looked to do with the roster, and it's been all about the buy-in, hasn't it, with the Eels and the changes to the Eels this year. So if for whatever reason Bailey is not feeling comfortable at the club anymore, I don't think the club would stand in their way. But maybe, as I said, when both parties take a step back, who knows? I mean, Bailey has been one of the absolute fan favourites at the Eels. it'd be a shame for him to part ways with a club where there's plenty of love for him amongst the supporter base. So there's not really too much to report on that because, as we said, he can't go anywhere for the rest of this season. And if it's something for next year, well, they've got time to work it out. So, and I think they should take the time to work it out.
Oh, of course. Yeah, you don't want either party rushing to a sort of ill-reasoned conclusion on this regard. And regardless of how it does play out, I do hope that both parties can reach a satisfactory accord, because I would love to have Bailey stay around. Obviously, we're both big fans of him, but if he is adamant he wants to leave, then hopefully the club and he can facilitate or broker a parting of the ways that works for both sides.
And I think they would. And if you were to ask me which direction do I think it would go, like, this is without knowledge on it, but based on, I think, the trends that we've seen this year, is I'd back it to be a parting of the ways, but that's just my personal opinion.
Mm-hmm.
So anyway, we just wanted to touch base on that because we had really big numbers on the YouTube podcast of our live news program on Tuesday night. We want to thank everyone for tuning in there. We've gone from YouTube being just the audio of us at the start of the year and a couple of hundred people maybe listening on audio to nearly 1,500 people that are tuning in as we had on Tuesday with the live YouTube. And we really appreciate that. Of course, that also gives us a chance to remind people, subscribe, please. It just helps. Plus, if you hit the notification, you're always aware of when our content is going on.
It's a free way of supporting the TCT and the tip sheet. So if you hit that like and subscribe button for a given video and also the channel in general, it is greatly appreciated. And of course, the other thing we always mention is that the tip sheet is brought to you by a couple of fantastic sponsors in Parramatta Leagues, who are the home of the Eels. And as you mentioned, Craig, we're going to be there on Sunday, hopefully with a fantastic guest to help break down Indigenous Round and the importance of both the matchup against the Cowboys this week and Indigenous Round for the code itself. And then, of course, the other partner being Star Partners, Real Estate Auburn Rowan and Parramatta. Greg and the crew there being pretty much the first on board for Parramatta for tip sheet in regards to the Parramatta Eels. And, we always love giving them a shout-out, don't we, Craig? Fantastic supporters of not just Parramatta, but also TCT and great people in general.
Oh, yeah, Greg and the team, we couldn't ask for more. Greg's just the most passionate Parramatta supporter. And
it's always good to have a sponsor plug where you're not just emptily talking about how fantastic this product is, but you're legitimately talking about someone that cares about the Parramatta Eels and what we do as well. So it's good. Yeah.
And we mentioned, and just as a quick backstory for people, Greg, he not only a lifelong Parramatta supporter, but his son, Nick, played for the Eels in the lower grades.
Very handy player through Jersey Flegg, yep.
Yeah, and it was quite a handy player, and I think represented Italy too, as part of the his international background, and we got to know Greg, and then Greg approached us and said, "Look, I'd really like to help you get the Cumberland Throw content out to as many people as possible. This is what I'd like to do," and it sort of grew from there. And to be honest, without Greg coming on all those years ago, we would not have been able to expand the accessibility to the website, where we used to crash because we'd have so many people wanting to get on as soon as content became available. And for those people who aren't familiar with web hosting, it costs money to make your website available to certain numbers of people at the same time. And the more that you want to make it available,
it's not a linear increase in pricing too. The increments jump pretty aggressively.
It is not. It is not. So if you want to end up with unlimited people being able to access your site at the same time, it costs money. And we wouldn't have been able to do that without Greg. So when we say the support helps us to get content out there, it literally does. We wouldn't be able to do it without having sponsors. And it just makes it possible for us to do what we do. So without further ado, John, quick mention to Sean Kinchella, local famous for the Indigenous jerseys.
Yeah. Great
this year. He
mind.
delivers every year. He delivers an absolute killer jersey. It's no different this year. We get to see that jersey this weekend, and of course Indigenous Round stretching across 2 weekends. And what we should say is that the Eels have been blessed over the years to have such talented Indigenous players wear the blue and gold, and now this year we've got multiple Indigenous players across both the NRL and the NRLW. We've got the NRLW captain, Mahalia Murphy, who is an Indigenous player. We've got Josh Addo-Carr, probably the most popular player in the Eels team, a proud Indigenous player. And we've got a club where the name Parramatta, or derived from Parramatta, and the Eels logo are uniquely have that Indigenous link. And I think we're all proud of the fact that there are such links between the club and the Indigenous culture of Australia. And these are certainly rounds to celebrate. So, as I said, without further ado, let's jump into the Jersey Flegg, John.
Yes, big one this week. It happens on Saturday. This one's out at Kellyville Park. 1:00 p.m. kickoff. Parramatta Eels in 5th place, hosting the 1st place Melbourne Storm. This is a top 5 clash. One that, while the Eels are pretty much, they're not booked their tickets to the finals yet, I think, Craig, officially. They're deeply entrenched inside the top 5 now, and they have a chance to go higher with a win against Melbourne Storm, who I think they did beat earlier this year, if I'm not mistaken. The Melbourne Storm have only lost 4 games all year, but if I go to the Jersey Flegg and have a quick gander at the Eels, they met Melbourne in... Did they meet Melbourne? Am I making this up? I thought they played Melbourne earlier this year. Maybe I'm misremembering. It looks like they did not.
I think there's 2 teams we only play once.
Melbourne must be one
One's
of them.
the Silkdales.
I think
Is Melbourne the other?
Melbourne's the other, yeah. No, we play Melbourne twice. We got them again in a couple of weeks. We go back there. So I was conflating last year for this year. But the Eels coming off a solid win against South Sydney, taking on the top of the table Melbourne Storm. Eels with a couple of changes this week, starting at fullback where we do have a change. Cooper Fuller is out this week. I'm not sure if it's injury or suspension, but coming into the team is the utility back Corey Lee, who's done a good job in the centres earlier this year, Craig. Now gets a chance in what was his old position of fullback, but he's since transitioned into that sort of centre utility role for the back line. Coming in for his second game after bagging a hat-trick on debut, it's Lorima Rokasuka. He'll work the right sideline, I believe, with Araz Namva down that side. It's Will Lewis. It was Will Lewis on the weekend. And then Araz Namva and Muhammad Al-Madin will be on the opposite flank. Matty Hunter partners Josh Lynn in the halves. In the front row, Bo Lucian, Paddy Spence and Ryder Talongi make a, 2/3 SG ball front row right there with Bo and Ryder coming up from the under-19s program to be part of the flag. In the back row, Don Destratus, Chris Petrus, back from the Australian Schoolboys Carnival, where he earned selection in the Australian Schoolboys squad. He replaces Jezaiah Funa-Iuta on the edges, with Jezaiah being promoted to the New South Wales Cup. And then locking out the scrum is Max Popo, another one of the SG Ball graduates. On the bench, it's Raf Destratus, Lachlan Koinakis, Damascus Nemia, and Yeti Samuelu. Isaac Jim is the 18th man, or the concussion sub, however you want to label it these days. And they're taking on the Melbourne Storm, there's Dylan Brettle there in the 7, Craig. He's doing a good job there. Frankie Howarth, who I believe is Jack's younger brother there. Jack, of course, being of the Melbourne Storm first-grade pedigree. Anyone else I recognise very quickly there? There's a Pole, not sure if related to the West Tigers forward, and Hinchy. But yeah, that's the long and short of it there. So Dylan Brettle doing a good job down there in Melbourne, which is good to see. I had a lot of time for Dylan. He was a handy halves prospect, but was a little bit on the skinny side. So if Melbourne think they can get him into a better place physically, then he'll probably pan out to be a pretty useful halves prospect going forwards.
Oh, there was a little question about Dylan's footy IQ.
No, not at all.
and certainly his competitiveness and drive out there. They were certainly the qualities that stood out most about Dylan. So the Eels will have to be on guard against him. It'd be interesting to see if anything's changed about Dylan's physical size, because it was always going to be that if he could just bulk up a little, that it was the talent was there. So interesting that he ended up in the Melbourne system. And but John, last week the Eels found form against a South Sydney team that has been struggling, but the Eels did what they needed to do. Had they got everything out of the system that they needed to? No, there's still the errors. There were still errors that they need to just completely get out of the system. The one thing I'll keep harping on about is complete your set after scoring points. It's different players where it'll happen, but they just need to get that focus on completing the set, get to the kick after points. Don't let another team get a look back in, because that's probably been, I guess, something that the Eels have needed to address during the year. Because when they're on a roll, when the Eels are on a roll, they've got some damaging players in that team and can really score some points. But there's been times where they've leaked it where they shouldn't. It's basically just handing over possession when they've been in complete control. It's just that loss of momentum that can happen. They've had the talent to gain momentum back during the season, but in some ways, it's felt like the SG ball. I don't know about you, John, but there's almost felt like a familiarity about, and the SG ball went through undefeated this year, and unfortunately lost the grand final in extra time. But it felt like at times with the SG ball that they could have won bigger. There'd be little moments where they'd lose momentum, but then they were good enough to get it back. And it's felt like there's been times this year with the Flegg where they've just been on a complete roll, an error here or there, another team gets some momentum back, but then they're able to get it back again and go on with the job. But they had a couple of tough weeks, didn't they? And that was, I think, really when they had a couple of big losses, and I think the St. George one was an awful loss. I think it was about a 60-point loss, wasn't it? I think they reached the tipping point with injuries.
And that also lined up with the Australian Schoolboys Carnival too, I think. So they'd lost even more players. So it was a huge drain on personnel during that stretch. And that's not to excuse some of the football we saw on the field. They played ordinary football too, but that did help facilitate some of those issues. Just looking at that Melbourne Storm team, a few boys from the finals game they played against the SG Ball, Melbourne v Para. Frank Howard was at lock forward in that game, playing centre here. The dummy half, Jai Bowden, was on the interchange as the dummy half utility. And I believe the other one was on the bench, Cooper Clark here. So they've got a few players up from their SG Ball squad, not as much as the Parramatta Eels, who have SG Ball players playing up to the New South Wales Cup right now, as well as proliferating the Jersey Flegg team here. But a good little bit of I suppose not vengeance, but a sort of return match there between the two squads that played that sudden death final out at Penrith.
It was out at Penrith, and the Eels emerged victorious in that one. It was a
very tough game.
It was a tough contest.
Yeah, Melbourne were up for it in that one. Yeah.
Oh yeah. Very physical contest, that one.
It was.
So I'm expecting that physicality to be really high this week, and given the season that the Storm have had, not that I've been watching Storm performances, but you drop 4 games across what they've done so far, and it's a very good season. Yeah, and knowing the brand of football that they play, this will be a game where the Eels will have to be producing close to their best football. I like the team that the Eels have named this week. They've having a change of fullback. It's not ideal, but as you said,
that's what
this was Corey's
fourth?
position before.
Is this our fourth string fullback? Up at Titles, up at Cup. Then you got
Cameron
Bambutt, Cooper Fuller, sorry. So
they've had, I think they might have had a fifth fullback in there as well.
Oh, they did. They had the Jaden Mbichi, who played there. I don't know if he's injured right now, but he did a solid job earlier in the year. So yeah, the Eels being tested, tested at number one, and Corey's going to come in and do a really solid job though. He did a great job in the centres earlier this year when the opportunity was given to him, and I think he's not going to be necessarily a superstar here, but he'll do the job, which is what you want. They get I say Araz Namba. Araz may be in line for a New South Wales Cup promotion, depending on what happens to Bailey Simonsson. We can talk about that shortly. But the back line.
Oh, look, I'd be resting Bailey this week, so who knows what's going to happen. But I mean, that's just what
there's a lot of moving pieces potentially here. But even if they do lose Araz, you still got Larima, Will Lewis, and Muhammad Al Madine as a very solid, 3/4 of a 3/4 line. And then the halves pairing of Matty Hunter and Josh Lewin is among the best in the flag this year. So they've got a lot of quality still in that back line. Forward pack really solid. Chris Petras is a big in this week. I know they do lose Jezaiah, which does hurt, but to get back Chris Petras, an incumbent Australian schoolboy, really breakout star in the SG Ball this year, big. So I'm really, obviously you want the win, but if they can just take it to the Melbourne Storm and really challenge them, the team that's on top of the table with only 4 losses this year, I think that's a good indication of where the team could be heading into the finals.
Yep, I would agree. Okay, John, let's power through to the. We didn't give a tip. We didn't give a tip on that. I will tip the Eels because I like the balance. I think
home field advantage is important this week. So I'll also tip the Eels. I know we tend to be homers in that regard. We always favour the heart over the head, but I do think that there is at least enough plausibility with the head here to justify going with the heart. So, yeah, Parramatta Eels to get a big upset. I say big, to get an upset win this week and consolidate off that victory against South Sydney and then keep themselves in touch with the rest of the top 5, which takes us to a derby game, an in-house derby game. Parramatta Eels, 7 o'clock p.m, Monday night out at the New South Wales Rugby League Centre of Excellence, which is in the Olympic Park precinct. If you've driven past it, it's that big building with the football field next to it. Weird, having a football field there. But they're taking on the Wenty Magpies, hence why it's an in-house derby game. Eels come into this game on the back of 3 straight wins after back-to-back losses, back-to-back tough, close losses at the start of the season, looking to continue.
And why are we playing them there?
I don't. We've played a couple of games there in the last couple of years. I don't know. I can only imagine.
I think there was a game against the West Tigers.
There was. Yeah, Alicia Bell scored in the corner. I remember that. Yeah, it's a very odd venue. Like, surely there's something available elsewhere, but regardless, they're there.
Is it because it's at night? Has it got a better?
Maybe, but why are they playing? Why are they playing a Monday game? I don't understand. Monday, the NSW Centre of Excellence, just strange, strange. But the Eels, they look like this. Ella Carlisle was at fullback, having a great season there in the 1. Paige Knapp and Caitlin Peelan on the wings. Josie Linaz and Kiana Takarangi round out an unchanged backline. There is a change in the halves though. Rosemary Becker promoted to the NRLW this week because of that injury to Cassie Toihiku. Matisse Bettridge comes back into the team. She's done a good job there earlier this year, and she continues to reunites her partnership with Aliyah Sufan in the halves. In the front row, we have another change. Tala Amiatu played that 1 game in the HNWP last week, did a great job, has been recalled to the NRLW to make her season debut. Replacing her is Taylor Falanico. She'll work alongside Ruby Jean Kennard Ellis as the 2 props. Chelsea Makira is the dummy half. In the back row, the captain is Jess Kennedy on one edge, Fontaine Tafua on the other. Ashley Pottinger rounds out a very young and talented back row. On the interchange, it is again an all-Tash Gale affair. Ava Jones, Kylia Gray, Alana O'Loughlin, and Matoisha Kalepo are your 4 rotational players. Dallas Graham-Wivel and Liana Dimmick, your 2 substitute, or I suppose extended bench / concussion substitute candidates there. And they take on the Wenty Magpies. Any familiar names here, Craig? There is... We know Blessing. Blessing's on the interchange there, so good luck to Blessing. Anyone else? Danielle Seckold used to be in our pathway. She played for Wenty last year. Katia Duff. Maria Fasavalo Farmasui, another pathways player there. So, good to see the Eels are spreading out their talent there and giving them opportunities to play senior football across 2 teams. It is a little benefit of having that affiliation with Wenty. And yeah, best of luck to the Parramatta Pathways girls on the other side of the ledger this week, but not too much luck. Not too much luck. We want the Eels the good girls to prevail this week.
Wenty were very strong last year, John. How
Wenty
did
were
they sit
excellent last year. And funnily enough, the Eels actually knocked over Wenty at their prime of their powers. It's been a rough year for Wenty this year. They're 0-5. So funny how things change like that, from being the best team in the competition last year for the regular season to struggling this year.
Yeah, so that is, I'm not sure what sort of personnel turnover they've had, whether they've been able to, whether they've lost a number of players that they had last year. But what we do know is that this Eels team has been building into the season. After dropping the first 2 games of the year, they've run 3 on the trot, so they're aiming for 4 in a row. They have lost the halfback Rose Beckett to elevation to NRLW, but it's not like Bettridge is a stranger to the halves in the Harvey Norman team this year. So we know they're a team that's got some pace about them and have used that to their advantage this season. You can see the graduates that have come through the Eels pathways, even this year's Tasha Gale team that are now playing with the Harvey Norman team. All I would suggest, John, is I'm expecting them to continue on their winning ways, because it's, I was a bit concerned with the trial at the start of the year, but it was hard to see who the Eels had out there because we weren't working from a team list, and there was a lot of players run on and off during that trial game, and I didn't see any rhythm in the team, any real cohesion in the team, but that's something that they built into, and you'd expect that. When you've got that many new faces coming together,
a young, inexperienced team, new faces. Because we say young, it wasn't just the Tasha graduates. They recruited people across the squad like Ella Carlisle, Paige Knapp, and whatnot that are all young talents. And yeah, it's hard to integrate that, hit the ground running, especially when, unfortunately, I say unfortunately, maybe it was fortunately, the draw had them matched up against some of the better teams in what seems to be the competition this year. They lost to Illawarra and Cronulla, both of whom look to be genuine top 4 and title contenders, and then went on to play Newcastle, who are also a very good team.
Yes, yeah, and I think that certainly that game against Illawarra, I think, was lost late in the game.
Yeah, last couple of minutes they scored 2 tries to break a 12-all deadlock.
Yeah. So they built into the season. I think they'll continue building, and unfortunately for Wenty, who obviously have a place in the hearts of Eels supporters as well, it will come at their expense this week. So that now takes us, John, to the New South Wales Cup clash, which we mentioned earlier has been moved from CommBank Stadium.
Yeah, I think, unfortunately, while the children do yearn for the days of the triple header, I think the days of the triple header at CommBank have gone the way of the dinosaurs. And obviously we're hopeful that we get the triple header out there, but yes, it's been pushed out to Kellyville. 12 o'clock p.m. kickoff. This one is on Sunday. So I guess you could make that journey from Kellyville to Parramatta without too much of an issue, I think. Parking might still be
we will be setting up for.
Oh, that doesn't mean us. If you are a fan that wants to get out there and attend, but bear in mind, parking could be a bit of a bear, given that there is a big doubleheader at CommBank that follows. But the Eels, and I do believe they've actually booked their ticket into the finals with the win last week. We're still looking to stay in touch with the Dragons, in particular ahead of them, because no one's catching the Warriors at this point with just the one loss to their name. Phenomenal season they're having, but one loss to the Warriors there. Eels look like this as they take on the North Sydney Bears. Arpatuata, we mentioned him in the Flegg in terms of the fullbacks that aren't available for the 21s. He's not available because he's having a great season in the New South Wales Cup, and he's made that number 1 jersey his own this year, so well done to Arpa there. Jake Tungall and Hayes Dunster are on the wings. In the centres, provisionally it's Bowie Simonsson and Richie Penasini, but we would not be surprised to see Bowie potentially just rested this week on the back of what's happened and what's developing there with his situation. In the halves, another player that we're super keen to see some more football from, it's Lorenzo Talataina. Had a great debut last week against the Bunnies. Gets a chance to take on the Bears this week and build on that debut. He'll partner Ronald Volkman as the halfback there with the 7 on his back. Front row brings plenty of experience. Woody Gregg, Joey Lussick and Tony Mattielli. Back row, Tyrese Lakini gets the promotion from the interchange bench this week, and a nice little bump up for him because obviously Kelma Tuolangi and Jordan Samrani being called into the NRL squad. Dan Keir shifts from lock to edge. He'll captain the squad too, with Saxon Pryke, another young gun, called into that starting back row on the back of those changes. On the interchange, it's Manny Luke as your dummy half utility. Brock Parker, Jezaiah Funa-Iuta, another fantastic talent, making his, I believe it's his cup debut, right, 60s? He's been named as 18th man a couple of times, but I don't think he's played.
Yeah, I think you're probably right.
And he gets his first look in at senior football, which is fantastic, and then being called back into the team after being really solid in the back line earlier this year at Samuel Luizu. And they're taking on the Bears, who come into this one in 9th to Parramatta's 3rd. Couple of familiar names there, Craig. Ethan Martin made the jump across mid-season to the Bears after being sort of lost in the wash in that Parramatta depth. Obviously had plenty of time for Ethan. Hope he can stay fit and make a real fist of it for himself. But also other familiar names you might mention or might know. Jaden Yates. We got, Philip McIntyre is not Makahesi. He's at the Roosters. But on the interchange, Nathaniel Roach and Tarsi James. So Roach obviously spent a year with the Eels, year or two. And Tarsi James was a Parramatta junior that went to the Tigers and then the Bulldogs, I think. So he's bounced around a little bit. Now he's ended up at the Bears.
Yep. So familiar faces, but as you said, they're sitting in 9th place. That doesn't necessarily mean anything when it comes to lower grade football. And before we go on, I just want to give a shout out to some of the Bar Sports callers, because over the years we've got to know Morgan.
Yep.
We've got to know this year AJ.
Who does the fantastic league scene work as well. Yep.
Yep, and also Michael, and it's been great to get to know them, to know the effort that they put into their craft. We had one season where we were doing an audio stream call of the games, John, and it's not an easy.
Well, it's like officiating, isn't it? It's easy to sit there and criticize and say how much of a better job someone else could do, but when you're thrust into that situation live and making those calls, whether it's as an official or a commentator, it's very easy to trip up and maybe not get the best clarity there. And these guys do a really solid job.
Oh, they do a really solid job. And I had the pleasure of working alongside Morgan for a couple of weeks, and watching him in action, and to see someone be handed a team list of, and this was back in the calling the Laurie Daly and
the country
Andrew John
equivalents of ball
cups.
and mats,
and the Eels had a couple of teams in those competitions that year, which is why I ended up working alongside him as I was doing a little bit of colour commentary. Believe me, that was the easy part with that, because seeing that someone like Morgan get the team list literally just before they run out. And it's not like these players are high profile.
No, and
players
you know that it's Cameron Munster,
or anything like that.
or Jerome Hughes coming back into the team and what they're going to do for the opposition. No.
And I said, "How, mate? How are you going to do this? Like you're literally just seeing it." And he's just like, "I'll put the spine, commit that to memory, throw in the props. They'll get most of the ball."
Yeah, you look for the big ball handlers.
He said, "I'll pick the others up through the game." And it just the craft that's involved in, first of all, when it's like that and there isn't time for prep, or on another basis where there is the time for prep and you see these fellas and right up till when they're starting, they're going over their notes that they've made.
Yeah, looking for previous matchups and what player did well in a given, like across the season or in a head-to-head, representative honours for a young player. Have they made New South Wales 19s or Queensland 19s? There is so much that goes in there on the research you do, and it's not easy. It is not easy. So these guys are doing a great job. And also we appreciate that
they've connected with us as well,
There's
because
also,
it's all the footy community, isn't it, John? And
yes. Oh,
and you get
absolutely. The community among it's because it's not really park football, is it? When you talk about reserve grade and the junior reps, that community is really phenomenal. And that's why we always encourage people to get out there and immerse yourself with the people there, because so many wonderful people involved in the grassroots of rugby league. We haven't even mentioned Pele, who's behind the camera, who does a fantastic job there.
We love Pele. Papali, he's obviously Joe Ash's father. So shout out to Pele, and if you ever get a chance to have a chat to him, I think a lot of Eels supporters saw the character,
the outstanding video
of Pele,
yeah.
with his speech that he made with Joe Ash's debut, and we've had the pleasure of having a chat with him at games, and the pearls of wisdom that he comes up with, and his insight and his passion for rugby league. And he's just a real community person, because he's been involved.
Hugely respected across rugby league and the Samoan community too, I believe. So
and he's been involved with Pathways Football. He helped out. He was heavily involved at the Bulldogs for a while as well. Just a very knowledgeable, as well as a very genuine man.
Again, it speaks to the sort of people that you can meet and be involved with in both Junior Pathways and New South Wales Cup. The framework and the tapestry of rugby league has never been richer in this regard. So strongly encourage people to get out there and just say hello to people and sort of get involved. It's great.
Yeah, absolutely. Couldn't endorse that more. And I just wanted to touch on that, John, because this is the last sort of lower grades game before we cover the NRLW and NRL. And I just wanted to give a shout out to the callers of these games and the time and the effort they put into that. And I think they deserve a lot of respect for what they do, because they're young people who are making their way in the game, and I think they're people who will have a future in the game. All three of those that we've mentioned. So so good luck to whichever of those fellas might be calling the Eels games this weekend. And I think supporters really appreciate the work that you do. So, John, this Eels team, they've had an outstanding season. They've been the epitome of the next man up.
Of grit, yeah. Just grit and gumption through prolonged adversity. They've been hugely impacted by the NRL injuries. They've obviously caught upon the Jersey Flegg stocks a lot of times throughout the year. As well as the RMC too, Ron Massey, also been a very useful lifeline for the New South Wales Cup. But we've done it throughout the year, but Nathan Kalis and the boys really deserve their flowers here. They've done such a fantastic job battling through these injuries, to the point where we talked about how good the Warriors have been this year, just the one loss. Honestly, a phenomenal season. Don't want to undersell it. The Eels really took it to them a couple of weeks ago. At probably their weakest moment of the year, where they had the least amount of people available because the Australian schoolboys that took the drain on both Flegg and Cup, injuries, suspensions, the works. They lost
the players that left the club.
Yeah, exactly. You talk about the guys that had departed from the Eels for one way or the other, really hurt their playing stocks in reserve grade. And the Warriors ran away with it in the last 15, 16 minutes, but the Eels took it to them. And on the back of that sort of effort, they've won games around on either side of that loss that they shouldn't have won, and it's put them in a position where they've qualified for the finals with weeks in hand, and have a chance to climb into the top two potentially if they can get the Dragons. It's 2 wins, I think they're trailing the Dragons here, so it's a bit of a task, but with a bit of luck, they're in a position to finish top 2, which is huge.
Yeah, absolutely. So, looking at the team, as we said, we're not going to be surprised if Bailey doesn't play this week.
Yeah.
It's certainly something we'd do. We're both in agreement. You'd give him a week's rest just to get his headspace together. It'll be interesting to see how they perform this week, because last week it was obviously a massacre of a South Sydney team that is really decimated by injury and would have had a lot of Ron Massey standard players in that team. it was a game where, let's be honest, if it was in dry conditions, the score might have got up to 70 or 80 points.
Yeah, given what the Warriors did the game before, not the week before, because it was a global bye, I think 60 plus, 70 plus was definitely there. Again, we mentioned,
even with a great training field,
we mentioned it with like how excited we were about what Lorenzo did, and it speaks to the entire team too. You can only play what's in front of you, and it is unfortunate that the South Sydney Rabbitohs were as weak as they were and have had that player drain that is reaching comical levels at the NRL level, which then flows on to all the other grades, as we always talk about for Parramatta. But yeah, the boys did a good job playing what was in front of them. Testing conditions out at Kellyville was very wet.
Oh, John, even with a great draining field like they have at Kellyville, the surface water, there's that much rain that fell, you ended up with surface water and big pools of surface water. And the rain it had moments where it was absolutely torrential. And for people who weren't there in person, but maybe were watching the live stream or have maybe caught up with highlights, TV never does justice to how heavy the rain was. It was
how sodden the track can be too, and the boys did a very good job. They really rolled up the sleeves, played some expensive football at times too, which is it's always a bold choice, but they executed pretty well, and it shows you where the team is at, and it's a good place.
Look, I thought last week Arpa Twiddle was. I had him as my best on field. I certainly had Lorenzo up there in the 3-2-1s. And I liked the work that Richie Penasini did last week. I thought he was really good. He was competing hard every time the ball was put up in the air.
Yeah, he set up a try for Hayes Dunster for a really nice tip back. And like you said, that wasn't a solitary instance. He was up there causing a lot of issues for the defensive back three or back two. I suppose he took full back in the wing on that side of the Rabbitohs.
Yeah, and look, Ronnie Volkman obviously did a lot of the game management that was there. It freed up Lorenzo to do his little bit of magic, but the forwards obviously won the middle, and you'd expect them to against the opposition.
Greg and Nattelli laid a great platform, and then they got good value from other guys. I mean, Kelmer had a good game, showed off his soccer skills a couple of times. Scored one try, nearly scored a second with the toe head on the ball on the ground, but he's been promoted to the NRL this week, which gives the opportunity to Tyrese and Saxon coming into that back row. And they've both had really good seasons in the Cup 60s, like not flashy by numbers or gaudy by numbers, but for a couple of young guys, and Saxon's he's not his first year playing Cup. He's got a bit of experience there, but I think Tyrese has done a really solid job, and Saxon has been good. So a couple of solid prospects there in the back row for the Eels. And speaking of a prospect, we obviously have Jezaiah there on the interchange. What sort of minutes are we expecting from JFI? Obviously a fantastic talent, like a real blue chipper in the back row, a player that the Eels no doubt have earmarked for higher honours, probably sooner rather than later, but they're not going to rush him. But in his Cup debut, or what we believe is his Cup debut, what are you looking at, 20 minutes off the interchange maybe?
Yeah, look, I would think that'd be the mark that you'd be aiming for. And possibly one of the ideal teams to debut against as well.
I mean, obviously you don't want to see the issues that facilitated the return of the enforced returns of Kelmer and Jordan to the NRL, because there's things beyond the coach's power. But it is an ideal circumstance to bring in someone like JFI and give Jezaiah a chance to, go shoulder to shoulder against a senior team that isn't super weak but isn't super strong either.
Yeah. So, John, look, I'm expecting that the Eels will get the job done. You look at the forward pack, and you've got that combination of experience as well as potential. And I said last week about Lorenzo that I thought he'd perform better with the experienced players around him.
And we saw that as he climbs through the ranks and through the grades, that getting more seasoned, more experienced, more it's not even intuitive, because I think it's just, like you said before, it's the reps, the guys that have been there and can quickly diagnose what is happening around them and can read and react to what Lorenzo does really fast. And to Lorenzo's credit, he obviously did a great job immersing himself in the playbook and how Nathan Callis wants that team to be run against the Rabbitohs. And now he gets a chance in what we hope is dry conditions. I'm not really sure what the weather forecast is for Sunday. Let's go to this one here. I mean, we'll go Parramatta because Kellyville is Parramatta adjacent. They're saying cloudy and cool on Sunday out of Parramatta. So it should be a dry track or dryish track. It is scheduled to rain on Friday and Saturday. So maybe a damp but drying track. And yeah, Lorenzo, with his game 2 opportunity here, really keen to see what he can do.
Yeah, look, I thought last week as well, the backs were quite exceptional against South, but again, we'll temper that by again saying the South were a very weakened team, but Hayes Dunster looked really back to his best. He's had such a tough run with injury, even within this year itself, but he looked really comfortable out there. Jake Tungor seemed to be rotating with Bailey Simonsson last week.
Centre and wing, yeah, they were rotating.
Yeah,
I don't know if that was a chord play or a function of Bowie looking to have that low. Because I don't know, I do think Bowie had a low back tightness in that game. Watching through there, he was definitely struggling, and that is obviously in isolation opposed to any like release request. So yeah, could be potentially be some some more swapsies in play here for Jake Tungor. Or maybe if someone else in the team there that's fully fit, they might just say to Jake, stay on the wing. You got Samuel Weezer there on the bench. You got Raz Number as a potential promotion candidate too. There's a couple of guys in RMC if they are healthy that we saw this year. Liam Scolari, Bo Newlands. So there are options for the Parramatta Eels in the back line to replace Bailey if they want to rest him. But I do look at that team and think they should win and perhaps win well against the Bears.
Yeah, I would agree. Okay, that now brings us to the NRLW clash, John, which is actually, well, it's not the last out of all the matches because we have the Harvey Norman being played on Monday night. But this is the Sunday evening game.
Which is traditionally the final slot on the weekend, correct? Well, technically it still is the final slot of the weekend because the girls are playing next week in the Harvey Normans. But yeah, tough week for the Parramatta Eels here, Craig. A couple of long-term losses, another loss in the short term in Kennedy. But the Eels without the services of Rory Owens and Cassie Tawihiku moving forwards for this season. Brutal blow for the Parramatta Eels, brutal blow for Steve Georgallis as the coach. And he's made a couple of pretty straightforward substitutions or replacements. Eels taking on the Cowboys. And we'll run through the Cowboys very quickly. They come into this game seated just ahead of the Parramatta Eels, actually. I think it's a 5v6 or 4v5. 5v6, I think it is, on the ladder. But the Cowboys look like this. Jakia Whitfield is their fullback. Crystal Blackwell and Francesca Goldthorpe are on the wings. Abigail Roach and Jasmine Peters in the centres. Kira Dibb, the experienced 5'8", will partner Tallulah Tillett in the halves. Mackenzie Wheel, Emma Manselman and Lily Peacock are the front rowers, and dummy half there, obviously, in Emma's case, with Talisha Harden, Haley J. Orman Mansell, and Bree Chester their back row. On the interchange, it's Alicia Ford, Lillian Yarrow, Lily Dick, S.A. Banu. Extended roster, Tiana Raff-Strand-Smith, Anna Malupo, Rosie Kelly, former Eel there, China Palata, and Tefua Asua, another former Parramatta Eel, I believe there, or at least Parramatta Pathways prospect. And then the Eels, for their part, Craig, like I said, a couple of straightforward changes here to take over from Owen and Tawihiku in the starting team, and Kennedy on the interchange, who has that Category 1 concussion. But at fullback, one player that we do need to lean on pretty heavily this week is Abby Church. Zoe Fay and Martha Mattelli are your unchanged wingers. Fleur Ginn, who came into the team mid-game and scored the eventual match winner at left centre, takes over that role full-time for Rory Owen, and we hope that Fleur can have a fantastic run now. On the other side of the field, it's Lindsay Tui. In the halves, it's Rosemary Beckett, who we mentioned in the HNWP preview that she got pulled into this squad. Has done a really good job for the reserve grade team when she's been healthy. Missed the first game or two, Craig, but since been really solid at 7. She comes into the halves to work alongside Rachel Pearson. In the front row, Elsie Albert, Ruben Charrington, and Brianna Eels are one of the few unchanged units in the squad. In the back row, it's Chloe Jackson, Mahalia Murphy, and the outstanding rookie, Riverly Arlaw. Shout out to her dad, who was in the live stream on Tuesday. Was very proud of his girl, as he should be. She's having an incredible year. And then on the interchange, Tanika Todd Hunter is your dummy half utility. Paige Travis, the new recruit, doing a great job on the edges there. Tess McWilliams recalled into the team this week, no surprises. And then Tala Amiatu also recalled to make her season debut. She's fought back from a hamstring injury, Craig? And then did a really solid debut or season debut in the HNWP last week. No surprises that Steve Georgallis has then turned to her to come back into the squad. Extend the roster, Ruby Jean Kennard-Ellis, Kiana Takarangi, Jessica Kennedy, and Chelsea Makira. Eels not naming their fifth reserve here. I don't know if that was just a clerical error or a function of a lack of fit qualifying bodies inside their top 24, Craig. But the
Could possibly be, yeah.
Eels going with just the four-player extended bench there. Not that I think they're going to use the extended bench this week. I think they're pretty content with that top 17, pending their fitness, of course. But yeah, 6:15 p.m. this one out at CommBank Stadium. Big game for look. We talk about maybe the long-term concerns about Parramatta's premiership viability. Now that they've lost two stars like in Rory Owen and Cassie Tawahiku, but this is a squad that still has enough talent, enough experience, enough quality to fight their way into the finals and then maybe make something happen. And to make their way into the finals, this is a game you got to have. This is a top six clash. This is a way to put a bit of a buffer between you and the chasing pack, consolidate your position. And the Cowboys, they're having a good year. They've got the wins banked right now, but not traditionally being a powerhouse. So Eels with a home field advantage, a rare home field advantage for Parramatta at CommBank nonetheless, not Eric Tweedow. They've got a fantastic chance here to steal a march on a finals competitor.
Who have the Cowboys got their wins against?
The Cowboys, if I just quickly pull up the draw, came into this game in the Telstra Women's Premiership, the North Queensland Cowboys. Started the season with a win over the Titans. Got beaten comfortably by the Knights, no surprises. Newcastle are a pretty solid team. Squeaked out a win against the Cowboys, the Cronulla Sharks, which they have in common with the Parramatta Eels. Thumped the Raiders, which again they have in common with the Parramatta Eels, but the Eels won by a much larger margin. And had a last start loss against the Warriors, who again are familiar with the Parramatta Eels. Yeah. These are two very similar teams on results.
The form line almost reads identical.
It almost reads identical. We just needed that game against the Dragons to really be the tiebreaker.
Yeah. So look, it is a big challenge this week with the missing players. You have a look at the casualty ward for the Eels, and to have 7 players in the casualty ward when they've got 24 contracted NRLW players. And yes, they do have development players that they can call on, but they have to be in a situation like this.
Yeah, it's not, as we alluded to earlier in the year after we spoke with Steve Georgallis for clarity. I'm not sure why, but as it stands, NRLW development contracts do not have the same capacity of use for coaches as the NRL development contracts. So now, round one in the NRL, you can call upon a development player, but in NRLW, you need to have the mandate from the governing body to get a clearance to play a development player under injury or suspension or unavailability.
Yeah, so look, it's still a strong-looking Eels team. But look, last week, that was a win that spoke of resilience. It was a win that spoke about the attitude of the team. They were gritty in defence. It was, and they competed for the full 70 minutes of the game. But there would have been concerns coming out of the game because there was still a lot of clunkiness in attack.
And like just moments of lack of polish that really hurt themselves. We talked about pass selection and some hospital passes from Rachel Pearson. Elsie Albert had a phenomenal game. She also had 3 errors. And there were errors in the attacking red zone again. We talked about the NRL's issues of red zone inefficiencies. NRLW have been guilty of that too. They do the hard work to get into a position to score and then hurt themselves. And the 2 places you don't want to be turning the ball over are deep in your own half and deep in the opposition half. The midfield errors are the ones that hurt you the least. Not to say they can't hurt you. They hurt you the least though. But yeah, as we saw for the Parramatta Eels in the NRL game last week against Melbourne, we turned the ball over half a dozen times in the red zone. We didn't make that many errors, but the errors we did have came in the red zone. It was true for the NRLW too, who had a couple of really costly errors at ill-afforded times in this contest, but they had the grit and the gumption to fight through it. And again, comparatively, the St. George Illawarra Dragons in the NRLW are not the Melbourne Storm in the NRL. And that was the big difference.
Yeah. Oh, and that was the thing, is that what concerned me, and I don't want to speak negative about this because I'm going to come back to speaking positive. Started off by talking about that incredible resilience that the team has, that desire to compete for every minute of the game. And you can see what wearing the jersey means to these girls. Like it means an awful lot. There's incredible team spirit, incredible club spirit within this group. That said, the Eels found that cohesion in the last 10 minutes of the game. Up until that point, that cohesion was hard to find.
Yeah.
Elsie Albert scored a try that very few NRLW players would have scored, because we half expect her to send someone flying off with a fend, but the way she carried 5 players across the line and somehow had that capacity to ground the ball was special. And it was going to take an effort like that to spark the Eels,
to catalyse the comeback.
Yeah. It's not like there weren't breaks made during the game, but either the support didn't quite get there, or the player didn't quite have the patience to hold on to the football and work for at least one more play when the breaks were made. It was a bit of a frustrating game to watch in that regard, and we know the conditions weren't ideal, but the clunkiness has been there probably all season anyway. So I guess it's a matter of, if this is the NRL, you're not worried about clunkiness across the first 4 or 5 games of a season, because the season's 27 weeks long.
Exactly. And
the NRLW is less than half that.
Exactly.
So you need them to find their straps a little bit earlier. Hopefully it comes a bit more now. Now this is where it gets harder, because you've lost a spine player, and you've lost an inspirational player as well. So it's a big ask. We need, and it's a Captain Obvious statement, we need Rachel Pearson to be up close to her best this week.
No doubt. Yeah.
Because she's got a less experienced halves player, albeit talented, but a less experienced halves player in Rose Beckett. And we know that Rose is talented. We saw what she was able to deliver in Eels Pathways. And she's also been handy when in this open age football of Harvey Norman and NRLW. But it's going to take, I think, a lot more from Rachel in comparison to what we saw last week.
Yeah.
I think some of the pass selection and the kicking was not Rachel.
No, there was some really poor passes that put her outside support in less than ideal situations. And
yeah, so we need the
been
best from her.
Yeah, so
we're expecting Abby will get even more involved, perhaps as a playmaker this week, just as we saw her do last week.
Attacking the short sides and trying to be maybe a primary receiver more often, yeah.
Yeah, so Fleur Jin did what she needed to do last week, and a little bit more in. That was good.
This is a big moment for Fleur too, because you can argue that she's been a little bit stifled on maybe like tempo and rhythm, being on the interchange bench. She gets the chance now to play the full game, the 70 minutes, isn't it, in NRLW? So yeah, hopefully she gets some good opportunities and can just start backing herself consistently, because she scored it was a great try. The work between her and River Lee was what separated the Eels from the Dragons at the end of the day. So need more of that from both players actually. River got to be surely among the NRLW front runners for Rookie of the Year at this point. You
would think so, and it was just that composure in that left side shift that gave Fleur that bit of space.
Yeah,
and the way that she took that opportunity was really, really encouraging, because she could have easily passed that ball off, and then Zali might have been at risk of being bundled into touch.
Yep.
She backed herself. She knew how much pace she had. The opportunity was there for her to cut through and get the ball over the line. She did it she looked like an experienced NRLW player the way she went for it.
Yeah, exactly. There's been moments of hesitation for her in the prior games where she'd come off the bench and had a handful of minutes. I know she came off the bench in this game too, but it's her most expansive role thus far because of the injury to Rory Owens. She got a chance to find her feet in that game, and like you said, given the opportunity in the critical moment, she backed herself. So hopefully that can be a real watershed moment for her as an NRLW player. And not to say she's going to be flawless from here on in. No one ever will be. You're always going to make a mistake here or there. But that was a moment that really let her know that she's good enough to be in this grade and to make a difference in this grade. So I think that's important.
Yep. John, I think at home and at CommBank Stadium.
That's the big thing, is the CommBank Stadium. This should be a win for our girls. And I know that the Cowboys are going to come in and give them a hell of a fight, but you want to hope for the CommBank faithful, the Parramatta faithful, they're backing them after the NRL game, and you want to hope that there's still a good crowd there for them, that they'll be really fired up this one and playing on probably their best surface of the year so far. You'd think. They've been at some smaller venues so far.
For whatever reason, they haven't been able to produce their best at Eric Tweedale Stadium at Granville. It's
a lovely venue too. Like, it's not like it's a bad venue. Among the suburban grounds, that the newer suburban grounds, it is legitimately a great venue. Just
absolutely,
it hasn't jived well for them. Maybe they keep playing Newcastle there. Maybe it's a matchup thing. But back at their true home here in CommBank, the tier 1 home, as you want to put it. I really hope that they can have a good win here, consolidate their position inside the top 6, and give themselves a chance to dare to dream. Not quite daring to dream just yet, but you get that win, you can start daring to dream about maybe doing the David v. Goliath thing later in the season.
Yep. So, John, I'm going to go a 28-18 victory to the Eels. I think first Eels try scorer this week. I'll go Chloe Jackson.
Jackson, I like it. Always a good tip.
And my tip for best on field, well, I've asked for her to step up in the role this week. So I reckon Rachel Pearson will get the job done. She's, as I said, was a little bit out of sorts last week. I expect she's going to rise to the occasion this week, so I'll tip her to be best on field. John, what's your tips?
I've got the last try scorer becoming the first try scorer. Flew again to open up the Eels account in this one. Best on field, I thought she was instrumental in the comeback and was denied a try assist in the late game on, I suppose, the most technical of the ball, did not get to the ground, course in the bunker. But I think Abby Church is going to be the best on field for the Eels. Bit of a cheek pick there for me. But the Eels to win, I would like to see a big win, Craig. I'm going to be a little bit greedy here. 38-12.
Wow, that's bold. That becomes
that is
one
bold.
Of the bigger,
yes,
one of the bigger tallies.
Yes, it's probably the second biggest, I think, in club history. Yeah. So I'm being very aggressive this week on the back of that game at CommBank.
Okay, well, let's continue the aggression as we get to the NRL clash between the Eels and the Cowboys.
Yeah, round 23, this one, mate. Eels.
The curtain raiser game.
It is the curtain raiser. Yeah, the 4:05 slot before the girls at 6:15 there. Eels hosting the North Queensland Cowboys. This one out at CommBank Stadium as part of that big doubleheader at our home stomping ground there. Two very desperate teams, it must be said here. But the polar differences here, very interesting. Jason Ryles with, and I say this unironically, the full backing of the board, of the club, of everyone, pretty much.
Yep.
Todd Payton comes into this one on a very, very warm seat. A lot of rumours swirling about his future at the North Queensland franchise. He and his boys would be absolutely fiending for a win. Can the Parramatta Eels play spoilers this week? For the Cowboys, they look like this. They've got, I think, a trio of inclusions to help bolster their odds of getting the victory. But at fullback, it's Scotty Drinkwater. You've got Zach Laybutt and Braden Burns on the wings. Jackson Purdue has been kicked back out to the centres. The young 5'8" has done a great job in the centres, but he makes way for Jake Clifford in the halves this week. Working opposite of him is Viliami Vailea at the other centre position. The aforementioned Clifford will partner Tom Dearden, who is probably the best young half in the game right now, alongside Isaiah Katoa, and he's doing a really good job for the Cowboys. He'll be their captain and halfback. Harrison Edwards and Jason Taumalo, one of the first inclusions there for... No, Cliff is one of the first inclusions, sorry. Jason Taumalo, one of the secondary inclusions there for Todd Payton, are the two props. Reece Robinson at dummy half. John Bateman and Jeremiah Nene are in the back row. Ruben Cotter is locked forward. Marley Bitugani, Thomas McCowley, their third inclusion. Kai O'Donnell and Colin Hess-Round had their interchange. Extended roster, Jackson Barlaw, Semi Valame, Nick Lenars. Good to see Nick getting closer and closer to an NRL debut there. Jamal Shibasaki and Caden Lars. So Cowboys welcome back a trio of players this week, just in time for the Parramatta Eels. Something we're very, very used to there. Before the Blue and Gold, Craig, a couple of changes this week as well, as we mentioned earlier, enforced by injuries to Sean Russell with a broken hand and Big Sam Tuavaiti with a MCL sprain, which means Joash Papali will be your fullback. Zach Lomax and Josh Adokar unchanged on the wings. Will Penasini at right centre. Jordan Samrani is being drafted to play left centre right now, with Dean Hawkins and Mitchell Moses in the halves. Jermaine Hopgood and Junior Barlow are the props. Riley Smith at dummy half. Charlie Guyman, Jack Williams, and Dylan Walker round out what is actually an unchanged Teamless Tuesday back row. Of course, Dylan Walker did get bumped to the interchange ahead of game day or kickoff for Luca Moretti, so you have to wait and see if that follows true again this week. But Luca is on the interchange with Talon De Silva, Matt Dury, and Kel Matualangi. So Ryles has called in Jordan Samrani at centre and Kel Matualangi on the interchange to replace the two players that were injured last week. Extended roster features Ronnie Volkman, Dan Keir, Hayes Dunster, Tony Mattelli, and Dylan Brown in the 22. And we do have officials. Liam Kennedy, the main man here, Ashley Klein in the box. So, again, is that good? Is that bad? I don't know. I think there's probably worse configurations you can get among the officials, Craig. But it is what it is. But yeah, Eels
helped us earlier.
Eels with a good win against the Broncos. I argued to you that I thought that the performance against the Storm was better in general, barring the red zone issues against Melbourne. So it's two quality efforts on a row. Can they make it 3 on the trot against the Cowboys? Bank an important win to put the spoon well and truly behind them as other teams like the Rabbitohs and the Titans vie for the piece of cutlery. What's your views on this one, mate?
John, I look at that Cowboys team and I go, there's a lot of talent in that team that doesn't seem to align.
5 or 6 Origin reps, Craig. 5 or 6 Origin reps. I think that's been a big... I mean, I know NRL 360 is a bit of a devil's advocate or incendiary program, a bit of a provocateur program designed to get people to take strong opinions. But they did make a point. 5 or 6 Origin reps in that team. And the Cowboys, at best, in the last few years, have been fighting to get into the 8, making up numbers inside the 8. Never been, not since 22 when the Eels made the grand final and beat them in the grand final qualifier, have they been actually anywhere near a legitimate contender.
Yeah, and yet their roster remains as strong as it does. Now, what we're seeing from the Eels is the Eels playing as some really positive football with a team that has struggled as a result of having key players out with injury.
Yeah.
And that continues this week because we're looking at Sean Russell, who is having the best football of his career easily. He's probably gone for the season. He might get back for the last week, maybe. Sam Tuavaiti, and I think all rugby league pundits will know what he's shown this year and the potential that he has there. And then when you're looking at the next two players, you're talking about players that have caused the rugby league world to sit up and take notice. And of course, that's Iongi at fullback. That's a massive out in terms of the strike power that the Eels have had through him this year. And of course, Gideon Katonga, who was becoming a major threat on the left edge for the Eels. He was invariably beating the first defender in every run that he had. And this is beside the players that simply aren't available because they've moved on this year. And it's not that these players were necessarily going to get a run in first grade, but let's just say the depth of the club has been really tested this season. I think we've used something like 33 different players during the year, and to align that to give you some sense, people talk about the South injuries. South have used 35 different players this season. So South's certainly been worse off than the Eels, but the Eels have had a far from easy season. And in fact, this is what Mitch Moses' 10th game of the season, I think, something like that. It's only
that's
9.
like the most brutal stat of
Might
all,
only be
isn't it?
9. Might only be game 9.
Yeah.
He'd only played 6 games before his recent return to the field. So it's and of course we haven't mentioned Dylan Brown there, with him being stood
And
effectively.
obviously there's
down.
circumstances within the Eels' control in regards to Dylan Brown. This is the opposite
Yes.
of things, but he's not been present in the team by virtue of Jason Ryles choosing to build for the future now, which I agree with, but I understand why people have been upset or frustrated about. But yeah, the Eels have been nowhere near. Again, you got to go back to before our grand final appearance to see the last time the Eels were fully fit. It is a ridiculous run of injuries or suspensions or other factors in general right now.
Yeah, but John, I just mentioned the challenges that face the Eels, and then we have to have a look at the positives. Iongi's out. The Eels are able to find a regular spot for Joash Papali, and it was always a matter from the start of this year. He should be in the 17 somewhere. Where do we fit him? And then the Eels got to the point where they had to use him. They just had to use him, put him on the bench. And then, of course, Jason Ryles made that decision to play him ahead of Dylan Brown because at that stage, it looks like he's going to give him the first shot at 6. And then, of course, the injury to Iongi means, okay, this has been the position he's played in most of the year and previously, so we'll shift Joash back to fullback. So we've got him coming in there. When it comes to the rest of the team, well, as I said, they've played really well as a unit, and were ultra competitive without Mitch Moses, and now Mitch Moses is in the team, and they're really competitive against the top teams, and that says a lot. But it says a lot about where the team have advanced to as well. So I think the Eels have got enough firepower to beat the Cowboys. You always worry about when a team's got that many representative level players, will they suddenly click into gear when we play them? Like, that's always the fear that I have when I see a team that's underperforming in a season. Is this the week where they lift? And who knows? This might still be the week where they lift. I'm hoping it's not. I think it will be a tight game. It's the forwards are going to be key to this. Yeah. And when I look at the forwards of the Cowboys, that's a pretty good pack. Like,
that's been the real challenge for the Cowboys. Is that on paper, it's a very good pack.
Yeah.
And you can talk about how much Jason Taumalolo has fallen off from his prime, but it's still a good player. Nanai Cotter, it's a representative back row right there. John Bateman's still a good player. Not in his prime, but still a good player. Yeah, they've lost Hill and Lukey, which hurts, but they've got talent there. So the Cowboys are a real puzzle, and I hope that they remain a puzzle after this week when the Eels beat them and beat them comprehensively.
John, I think the key is really the start of this game. I really want the Eels forwards to make a statement about winning that middle. I don't want us to be shifting the ball like crazy from the start of the game. Yes, I want us to ask questions, but I'd like to see.
This is a chance to be a statement game. Make a statement from the opening moments. Take control of this game by the scruff of its neck through the middle. Get the early points. Put the Cowboys under scoreboard pressure. Let them fold. Let them crumble. Let them play fast and loose, because that's sort of their mandate, has been a little bit loose and sort of like getting into shootouts. So put them under pressure. Take control of this game. Dictate the flow. Dictate the tempo. Make them play to your brand of football.
I don't think the Cowboys want to be patient. I think it's almost in some regards it's going to be similar to what we faced with the Broncos. Now the Eels were the most patient that they've been in any week against the Broncos. See, I wasn't so sure about our patience with the Storm. Maybe my view on that is coloured by the errors that were coming in those critical areas. But I really like the patience that was shown against the Broncos. I think if they show something similar, they'll get the Cowboys. So we know that the Eels are going to move the ball around. It's in their DNA to do that. And they've got it's the type of football Jason Ryles wants to play with his team. But I think there is that ground, like we saw against the Broncos, where play the football at their end. As you said, John, let them feel the pressure, let them implode, let them beat themselves to an extent. You take care of your own game, build pressure, see what it builds on, see what that pressure brings from the opponents. I'm expecting the Eels to win this. I expect us to take control from the start. I want us to take control from the start, but I expect us to. I think Mitch Moses' kicking game really comes to the fore in this. I don't think we need to score long distance tries in this. I think it's get up to that red zone, use the ball. And I come back to that try against, I think it was against the Broncos, where it was just a left side play inside the red zone on the back of building play through the forwards in the set, and it was it? I'm just trying to think now. Was it Sean Russell that scored? Yeah, I'm trying to think now what the
Russell had the chip kick.
That's right. It was Russell with the chip kick. Yeah, it was. Yeah. It was perhaps it was. I'm just trying to think now. It was the one where the Fox fell over. Who was that against? And Russell ended up scoring, diving over the top of someone to ground the ball.
Oh,
was that the? I'm now trying to think what game that was, but it came on the back of, and it was I think it was. That
was the Canberra game, right? When
the Canberra game, yeah.
When we fought back to take the lead, and you're right. Russell got the room service bounce after the Fox and Xavier Savage got tripped up.
Yeah. But that whole passage of play leading up to that try, it was just composed football.
Yeah, crisp, composed football. Yeah.
Yeah. There was no pushed passes. It was get up into field position, shift out to the left. The kick comes through, and it ends up Sean Russell being able to ground the ball. And it was, to me, it was like, this is it. This is what I want to see a lot more in terms of that composed, completed set, be able to put the opposition under pressure just through. And look, if you've got a team that mixes the football up like that, where you do get a little bit more hot potato football or moving that ball around, it makes it harder for the opponents to know what they're going to deal with in defence. So you can play both sides of football. You can play the more structured and unstructured. That's what it's about. And it's about that transition between structured and unstructured football. That was just a very well constructed set and try. I'd like to see a bit of that this week, because I think they can get the job done in that regard. And John, I'm hoping that we see just a bit better completions in the red zone from our Eels. So now it's time for some predictions. Look, I'll go. I don't know if I'm going to go as wild as you might with the score prediction here, John. But I'm going to go with a similar score to what I predicted in the NRLW. I'm going to go with 28-18 victory to the Eels. I reckon in terms of first try scorer that it may well be Joash Papali that gets that first try. And I'm going to suggest that best on field this week, I'm going to keep it simple, Mitch Moses.
I'm with you. I think this is a head-to-head shootout between Moses and Dearden, two of
Yep.
the premier halves in this game. Dearden is the danger man for the Cowboys. We need to be really tight on him, on his ability to run the ball late in the game when fatigue takes place, and that was really key. In the wins they've gotten this year, Dearden has been the central figure, and he was phenomenal in State of Origin. He was the difference. I mean, Moses being out and Dearden being in was literally the difference between New South Wales and Queensland this year. That was the difference. So we get to see this head-to-head matchup, which is a big one. So Mitch Moses, my best on field for sure. First try scorer, I will go with William Penasini. And then best on field I mentioned. One thing I do want to mention is that you talked about the middle being important. That means we need to see Jermaine Hopgood Jr. really be strong here. Jermaine, 2 really good games, and then unfortunately took a step back last week. I think he needs to correct that and fast. And no Sam Tuivasa means a bit less beef on the bench. Does Kelma Tuolungi get used on the edges? I would say so. Probably put Jack Williams into the middle when he comes on. So that probably helps in that regard there, even though we do lose Sam. And like, as you mentioned it, Craig, Sam was turning some heads. If you listen to the not changing commentary tone, because it wasn't like they were belittling Sam at the start of the season, but the respect that he has garnered amongst the wide range of commentators when he comes onto the field now. It's like, oh, here's Sam Tuivasa, look out. So that is a big loss to the Parramatta Eels. Ditto for Sean Russell, who's having that breakout you mentioned. But end score, I think you're probably right. It probably is a 28-18 score. I will probably just nudge it up a little bit and nudge it down a little bit. So I'll go 32-16.
Okay, sounds reasonable, John. Well, obviously we're, as usual, tipping the Eels to win.
I mean, look at our immaculate tipping record, of course.
and look at the stinger at the start. You know, the thrill of victory, the agony of defeat. We've had more agony than thrills this year, that's for certain. But when the thrills have come, it's been well worth it. We've enjoyed it that little bit more.
I like to think we do temper a lot of our tips of saying it is the head versus the heart. Sometimes we do get ahead of ourselves a little bit, but you know, why wouldn't you be tipping the team you support even in a tough season?
Look, I think this week it is a case of tipping with the head, because if you follow the form line, I think the Eels have got a better form line than what the Cowboys do.
Yeah.
And I'm going to, you know, I'm tipping it on that basis. I'm not suggesting it's going to be easy, because I'm always wary that, as I said before, a team with so many stars like the Cowboys do, this could be the week where they really come good with that. Yeah. But, I'd like to think we're going to get the win this week, and I'm tipping with my head with that. Just a reminder, of course, we'll be in at Parramatta Leagues Club in Sturlows giving our preview around about 2 o'clock. Hopefully we'll have a particular special guest there, just depends on availability. Really looking forward to seeing everyone in there before the big game, as we not just have a look at the game itself, but have a bit of a chat with a legend about their career. John, of course, that we just mentioned being at Parramatta Leagues Club, they're one of our sponsors. It's the home of the Eels. It's where you want to be, whether it be home games or away games. There's always fun to be had following the Eels, whether it's in person over at the stadium and visiting the club before and after, or whether it's on an away game and just joining other supporters in there at Sturlows and watching it on the big screen. And, of course, our OG sponsor, Star Partners Real Estate, Auburn, Narellan and Parramatta, and we spoke a bit about what they've meant to us over the years. Thank you again to all of our followers. Thank you to everyone who's been tuning in to the tip sheet. It's resulted in us getting a mention in mainstream media this week when it came to Bailey Simonsson and referring to the popular Cumberland Throw podcast. So we appreciate that. And John, thank you for another fine preview. And as I always say, go you mighty Eels.